The battle that changed everything. The black void of space was torn apart by explosions. Blazing debris drifted through the battlefield as Earth's last remaining warships fought desperately against an overwhelming enemy. Lieutenant Jake Carter, an elite human pilot, gritted his teeth as he pulled his fighter jet into a sharp roll, dodging a plasma blast that could have torn his ship apart. His squad was losing, and soon he would be dead. The last stand. Viper 3, you have 2 on your tail. Jake's comms crackled with the voice of his squad leader. I see them, Jake replied, sweat dripping down his forehead. His radar flashed red. 2 enemy Draken fighters locked onto him. Jake gripped his controls. Come on, baby, don't let me down now. He slammed the throttle forward, pushing his ship into an impossible dive toward a burning cruiser. The enemy followed. Almost there, just a little more. At the last second, Jake pulled up. The Draken ships were too slow to react. Boom! One of them slammed into the wreckage of the destroyed cruiser. But the second fighter, still alive, still hunting him. And Jake was out of tricks. A hopeless fight. His fuel was low. His weapons were empty. And worst of all, his squadron was gone. Jake's heart pounded as he heard the voices of the enemy fleet over the open comms. Last human pilot detected. Destroy him. Jake exhaled. This was it. He looked at Earth, small and distant on the horizon. At least he had fought until the end. He closed his eyes. And then, from nowhere, something fast streaked across his screen. A Draken ship. But it wasn't attacking him. It was attacking the enemy chasing him. Boom! Jake's eyes snapped open just in time to see the Draken fighter destroying his pursuer. What the hell? Saved by the enemy. Jake's ship shook violently, alarms blaring. His systems were failing. He was going down. He barely had time to react as his cockpit was flooded with a strange blue light. A tractor beam. The Draken fighter, the same one that had saved him, was pulling him in. Jake tried to resist, but his controls were dead. Great, he muttered. Saved from death, just to be taken prisoner. The world faded to black. A strange awakening. Jake awoke to cold metal beneath him. His body ached. His head pounded. As his vision cleared, he realized he was inside a dimly lit cell. The walls pulsed with a strange organic metal texture. This was not a human ship. This was Draken technology. He was their prisoner, the alien warrior. The door hissed open. Jake sat up, expecting guards, weapons, maybe an interrogation. Instead, a single figure stepped inside. A Draken female. She was tall, armored in sleek battle gear, her piercing golden eyes locking onto him with silent intensity. Her sharp, ridged features made it clear she was a warrior. Jake tensed. Let me guess, this is the part where you kill me. The Draken woman tilted her head, and then she said something that shocked him. If I wanted you dead, human, you wouldn't be breathing. Her voice was calm, controlled. Jake frowned. Then why am I here? She stepped closer, and for the first time, he saw something in her expression. Uncertainty, hesitation, as if she herself didn't know the answer. Finally, she spoke. Because I saved you. Jake stared. Why? She didn't reply. She just turned and walked away, leaving Jake with more questions than answers. A fate forever changed. As the door sealed shut, Jake leaned back against the cold wall. What the hell had just happened? A Draken warrior had rescued him, spared his life, and now refused to explain why. Something wasn't right. And deep inside, he knew. His fate was now tied to hers, whether he liked it or not. The alien warrior with a secret, Jake Carter sat in the cold metallic cell, his mind racing. He should have been dead. His squad was wiped out, his ship destroyed, and yet, a Draken warrior had saved him. And now, he was a prisoner on an enemy warship, with no idea what came next. The interrogation begins. The door hissed open. Jake tensed as two heavily armed Draken soldiers stepped inside, their weapons aimed at him. And behind them, the alien pilot who had saved him. She was still calm, unreadable. Her golden eyes locked onto him like a predator sizing up prey. Jake smirked. "So, are we finally gonna talk, or are you just here to stare at me?" The soldiers growled, but the female raised a hand, silencing them. She stepped closer. "State your rank and purpose, human." Jake leaned back against the wall. "Oh, now you want to talk." One of the guards slammed a fist into Jake's gut. Pain shot through his ribs. He coughed but grinned through bloody teeth. "See, now we're bonding." The female warrior's expression didn't change. But something flashed in her eyes. Something that told Jake she wasn't like the others, a Draken unlike the others. She turned to her guards. "Leave us." The soldiers hesitated. "But Commander Zhara." "Now." They obeyed. Jake sat up straighter. "Zhara. So, that was her name." She crossed her arms. "You do not fear death." Jake chuckled. "Lady, I should have died 3 times already. I think I'm past the fear stage." Zhara studied him for a moment. Then she did something that shocked him. She turned off the security cameras. "The truth comes out." Jake's grin faded. "Okay. That's weird. What's going on?" Zhara exhaled. For the first time, she didn't look like a hardened warrior. She looked conflicted. "I saved you because I could not watch another useless death." Jake frowned. "That's it. That's the big secret." Zhara's jaw tightened. "No." She took a step closer. "The truth is, I do not believe in this war." Jake's breath caught. This was not the answer he expected. A dangerous confession. Jake shook his head. "Then why are you fighting?" Zhara's expression darkened. "Because my people demand it." She turned away. "I was raised to be a warrior, to follow orders, to obey without question. But then I saw your fleet, your people, fighting with everything they had, even when they had no chance of winning." She hesitated. "And I questioned everything." Jake stared at her. This wasn't just an enemy soldier. This was someone who had spent her whole life being told what to do. And now she was finally thinking for herself. An impossible decision. Zhara turned back to him. Her voice was quieter now. "The High Command ordered me to execute you." Jake stiffened. "Great. Good talk. Love where this is going." Zhara's eyes burned into his. "But I will not." Silence. Jake swallowed. "Why?" Zhara exhaled. Then she said something that changed everything. "Because I believe my people are fighting the wrong enemy." Jake's heart pounded. He was looking at a Draken warrior, an enemy pilot, who had just declared, to his face, that she wasn't loyal to her own empire. This wasn't just an interrogation. This was a rebellion. The escape plan. Zhara took a deep breath. "I can get you out of here, but it won't be easy." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You're helping me escape." Zhara's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm helping us." She stepped closer. "You have a way back to your people. I need to find out the truth about mine." Jake narrowed his eyes. "You sure about this?" Her voice was steady. "Are you?" For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Jake smirked. "All right, let's break out of here." Zhara nodded. "Follow my lead, human, and try to keep up." The beginning of something more. As the alarms blared, Zhara led Jake through the dark corridors of the ship. Side by side, 2 warriors from different worlds. A traitor, a fugitive, and maybe, just maybe, something more. As they fought their way toward freedom, Jake realized one thing. His life would never be the same. And neither would hers. Escape through fire. The alarms blared through the Draken warship, red lights flashing in every corridor. Jake, Carter, and Jara ran through the chaos, their boots pounding against the metallic floors. They were no longer enemies. They were fugitives, and if they didn't escape now, they would both be dead. The pursuit begins. Security lockdown activated. The ship's automated voice echoed through the halls. Jara cursed in her native language. They've sealed the hangars. Jake's breath was heavy. Any bright ideas? Commander. Jara's golden eyes scanned the corridors as they sprinted. Yes, but you won't like it. Jake smirked. I haven't liked anything about today. A high-stakes gamble. Jara stopped at a control panel and yanked off a side panel, exposing a maze of glowing alien circuitry. Jake raised an eyebrow. You're hacking your own ship. Jara didn't look at him. I'm making sure we don't die. Her fingers moved with precision, bypassing security codes at lightning speed. A countdown appeared on the screen. Internal power core overload -3 minutes until critical shutdown. Jake's eyes widened. Wait. Whoa, you are blowing up he ship. Jara smirked. You wanted a distraction. The chase through the corridors. The sound of heavy boots filled the air. Draken soldiers were closing in fast. Jara grabbed Jake's arm. We move. Now. They sprinted down the hallway just as the ship trembled from internal explosions. Jake laughed breathlessly. This is insane. Jara gave him a sharp look. Welcome to my life. The ambush. They turned a corner and nearly collided with a squad of Draken enforcers. Rifles aimed at them instantly. Commander Jara, one of the soldiers barked. Stand down, and we may spare your life. Jara's expression didn't change. Jake glanced at her. You've got a plan, right? She pulled a small cylindrical device from her belt. Jake's eyes widened. Oh no. No, no, no. She threw it. Boom. A blinding flash filled the corridor. Jake felt himself being yanked forward as Jara pulled him into a side tunnel. The Draken soldiers screamed in confusion, blinded. Jake grinned. Okay, I like your plans now. The hangar showdown. They finally burst into the hangar. The escape ship was there, sleek, black, built for speed. Jara ran to the controls as Jake hurried behind her. But before they could get inside, a deep voice echoed behind them. Jara, stop. Jara froze. Jake turned. A tall Draken officer stood at the entrance, Captain Ration. Jara's jaw clenched. Jake whispered, Who's this guy? My old commander, she said, and my executioner. A choice of loyalty. Ration's golden eyes burned with betrayal. You were one of our best, Jara. You could have led armies. Instead, you betray us for this. He gestured at Jake. Jara's fists clenched. I never betrayed our people. She took a step forward. But I see the truth now. This war is wrong. Ration's gaze darkened. You disappoint me. He raised his weapon. Jake's instincts kicked in. He moved faster than he thought possible, tackling Jara aside just as a plasma shot ripped through the air. The final duel. Jara rolled to her feet, drawing a curved Draken combat blade. Ration smirked. You always were the best with a blade. Jara didn't reply. She attacked. Their blades clashed, sparks flying as they moved like lightning. Jake watched in awe. They were too fast, too precise, like a deadly dance. But then, Ration struck. Jara stumbled back, a deep gash across her side. Jake's blood went cold. Jara. Jake's moment. Ration turned to Jake. Humans are weak. You will never survive out here. Jake's grip tightened around the blaster Jara had given him, and for the first time, he aimed with deadly intent. Maybe. But I don't die easy. He fired. The shot hit Ration's shoulder, forcing him back. Jara took the opening. Her blade flashed, and Ration fell. The escape. Jara staggered, clutching her wound. Jake caught her before she collapsed. Hey, hey, don't go dying now. We just started this thing. Jara smirked weakly. You fight well, for a human. Jake grinned. And you fly well, for a warrior princess. Jara groaned. I hate you. Yeah. Let's get out of here. A new beginning. The ship lifted off, escaping just as the Draken warship exploded behind them. Jake exhaled, finally letting his body relax. Then he turned to Jara. So, where do we go now? Jara's golden eyes locked onto his. We find the truth. Jake nodded. Together. She hesitated. Then she nodded. Together. The ship vanished into the stars. And the real adventure was just beginning. The heart of a warrior. The stars stretched endlessly before them, an infinite ocean of darkness and light. The stolen Draken scout ship drifted silently through space, far beyond enemy reach. Inside, Jake Carter sat beside Jara, their bodies exhausted, their wounds still fresh. They had escaped the warship. They had defied an empire. But now, the real question remained. What happens next? A dangerous alliance. Kara sat at the controls, her breathing slow but steady. The wound on her side, a deep slash from her duel with Roshan, was wrapped in crude bandages. Jake leaned against the co-pilot's chair, arms crossed. You gonna be okay, warrior princess? Jara shot him a sharp look. Stop calling me that. Jake smirked. I don't know, it kinda suits you. Jara sighed, adjusting the flight settings. We need to figure out our next move. Jake raised an eyebrow. We. Jara didn't hesitate. You saved my life. I saved yours. We are bound by honor. Jake chuckled. So, what? We're partners now. Jara turned her golden eyes toward him. Only until we find the truth. Jake exhaled. Yeah, about that. What exactly are we looking for? Jara's expression darkened. The reason this war exists. A war without meaning. Tara pulled up a holographic star map, displaying the warring territories of the Draken Empire and the Human Federation. The war between our people has lasted for decades, she said. But do you know why? Jake frowned. They attacked Earth. That's all the reason we needed. Jara shook her head. That's what they told you. But what if I told you? They told us the same thing. Jake stiffened. They told us that humans were the first aggressors, Jara continued. That your people fired the first shot. Jake's hands clenched into fists. That's a damn lie. Jara studied his reaction carefully. Is it? Jake exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Listen, he said. I don't know who started it, but I've watched my friends die. My home nearly wiped off the map. And I'll tell you this, I don't fight for lies. Jara nodded slowly. Neither do I. Their eyes met, and for the first time, there was trust. A dangerous planet. The ship's radar beeped, pulling them back to reality. Incoming distress signal, Jara said, from a nearby planet. Jake frowned. Is it human or Draken? Jara tapped the controls. Unclear. But whoever sent it, they're dying. Jake hesitated. They had just barely escaped with their lives. But he knew what Jara was thinking. If they wanted the truth, they had to start somewhere. Jake sighed. All right, warrior princess. Let's go save some lives. Jara smirked. I thought you weren't a hero, human. Jake smirked back. Yeah, well, bad habits. The ship changed course, diving toward the unknown world below. The crash site. The planet was wild and untamed, covered in thick forests and jagged mountains. Their ship landed in a clearing, dust, and smoke rising around them. Jake and Jara stepped out, weapons drawn. The distress beacon was nearby. But something felt wrong. The air was too silent, the jungle too still. And then, they saw it. A wrecked escape pod. Burning. Still fresh. and beside it, a body. The mystery survivor. Jara moved first, kneeling beside the fallen figure. It was a Draken soldier, barely alive. Jake watched as Zara pressed 2 fingers against the soldier's neck, checking for a pulse. Her expression changed. "She's alive." Jake frowned. "She." The soldier groaned, shifting slightly. Her face was younger than Jara's, her armor in ruins. And then, her eyes opened, and pure terror filled them. The warning. The soldier gasped, gripping Jara's wrist. "You have to go," she choked out. Jara leaned in. "What happened? Who attacked you?" The soldier's breath was ragged. "It's not the humans," she whispered. "It's not us." Jake's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" The soldier's eyes flickered between them, fear consuming her. "They don't want peace," she gasped. "They don't want war." She grabbed Jara's collar. "They want everything." And then, her body went limp. Jara and Jake froze. The wind howled through the jungle. The shadows around them felt deeper, darker. Something was watching. And then, a low growl echoed from the trees. Jake's grip tightened around his blaster. Jara reached for her blade. And from the darkness, something moved. Something not human. Something not Draken. Something else. A love that shouldn't exist. The jungle was silent. Too silent. Jake and Jara stood frozen, their weapons raised, their breath slow. The Draken soldier's last words still echoed in their minds. "They don't want peace. They don't want war. They want everything." Then, the shadows moved. A low growl rumbled through the trees, deep and unnatural. Something was watching them. Something not human. Something not Draken. And then, it attacked. The unknown enemy. A blur of black metal and shifting flesh lunged from the shadows. Jake fired instinctively. Boom! A plasma bolt slammed into the creature's chest. But it didn't stop. Jara spun, her blade flashing in the dim light, slicing across the thing's arm. It hissed, recoiling, its unnatural limbs twisting. Jake's stomach turned. "What the hell is that?" The creature stood tall, its glowing blue eyes locked onto them. Then, in a voice that sent shivers down Jake's spine, it spoke. "You are not supposed to be here." Jake's fingers tightened around his blaster. Jara raised her sword. "Neither are you." And then the real fight began, a battle against the unknown. The creature moved like liquid metal, faster than anything they had fought before. Jake dodged left as a razor-sharp limb slashed past his throat. Jara countered, her blade striking its side, but the wound sealed instantly. Jake fired again, 3 direct hits, and the thing barely flinched. "This thing won't die," Jake shouted. Jara narrowed her eyes. "Then we don't kill it." She lunged forward, aiming for its legs. Jake caught on immediately. They needed to slow it down. One well-placed shot to the knee, and the creature finally staggered. Jara didn't hesitate. She grabbed Jake's arm. "Run. Now." A desperate escape. They sprinted through the jungle, dodging between trees as the creature shrieked behind them. Jake's lungs burned, his legs aching. "Where the hell are we going?" Jara's golden eyes locked onto something ahead. The canyon. Jake saw it. A massive cliffside, a deep drop into the darkness below. His heart pounded. "You want us to jump?" Jara didn't answer. She grabbed his hand and pulled him off the edge. The fall that changed everything. The wind rushed around them, the jungle disappearing above. For a split second, silence. Then, impact. Jake hit the water hard, the cold rushing around him, his body sinking. Disoriented, weightless. Then, a hand, strong, pulling him up. Jake broke the surface, gasping. Jarrett was already there, gripping a rock, keeping him steady. She was breathing hard, her body tense. Their eyes met. For the first time, really met, and something shifted. Jake had seen Jara fight, had seen her kill, had seen her save him. But now he saw something else, something human, a moment of truth. Jara's hand was still on his arm. For a Draken warrior, touch was rare, personal, intimate. Jake swallowed. That was insane. Zara gave a breathless smirk. "You're welcome." Silence. The jungle echoed above them, the distant screeches of the creatures still searching for them. They were trapped. Alone. Nowhere to go. Jake exhaled, leaning against the cold rock. "You really threw yourself off a cliff for me." Jara's gaze was unreadable. "You did the same for me." Jake chuckled. "I guess that makes us even." Jara's expression softened. "Not yet." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Oh, what do I owe you?" Jara hesitated. Then, in a quiet voice, she said, "Your trust." Jake felt his heart skip. For the first time, he wasn't looking at a Draken soldier. He was looking at Jara. And that scared him more than anything else in the universe. A love that shouldn't exist. Jake didn't believe in destiny. Didn't believe in fate. But sitting here, on the edge of a world neither of them belonged to, with the war still raging beyond the stars, he realized something terrifying. He cared about her. And that was a problem. Because humans and Draken, they weren't supposed to care about each other, weren't supposed to fall for each other. And yet, here they were. Two fugitives, two warriors, and maybe, just maybe, something more. The ultimate betrayal. The canyon was silent. Jake Carter sat on a cold rock, staring at the Draken warrior beside him. Jara had saved his life. Again. And now, they were stranded on a hostile planet, with an unknown enemy hunting them. The war between humans and Draken suddenly felt small, because something else was out there. And neither of them were ready for it. A plan to survive. Jara stood up, stretching her sore muscles. "We need to move." Jake exhaled. "Where?" Zara pointed at the towering cliffs above them. "There must be another way up. If we can get to higher ground, we can scan the terrain." Jake shook his head. "And if that thing is waiting for us?" Jara's golden eyes darkened. "Then we kill it." Jake chuckled. "You make it sound easy." She smirked. "For me, it is." Jake rolled his eyes. "All right, warrior princess. Lead the way." Jara pretended not to smile. The betrayal begins. They moved carefully, climbing over rocks, navigating the dense fog that had settled over the canyon. Every step felt heavier. Every shadow felt like it was watching. Then, Jara stopped. Jake almost bumped into her. "What?" She didn't speak. Her eyes were locked on something ahead. Jake followed her gaze, and his blood ran cold. A Draken warship landed just a mile away. The choice. Jake's mind raced. If there's a Draken ship here, that means... Jara turned to him, voice low. "Rescue." Jake hesitated. Jara was still a traitor to her people. If the Draken found her, she'd be executed. And if they found Jake, they'd kill him too. Jara clenched her jaw. "We need to be careful." Jake narrowed his eyes. "Are you sure about that?" Jara frowned. "What do you mean?" Jake's gut twisted. "You want to go to them." Jara's silence was all the answer he needed. Divided loyalties. Jake took a step back. "So that's it. You're gonna turn yourself in." Jara's eyes burned. "It's not that simple." Jake laughed bitterly. "It is. You either fight with me, or you go back to them. No in between." Jara's hands clenched into fists. "This war is bigger than us, Jake. If I can talk to my people, if I can stop the fighting." Jake cut her off. "And what if they don't listen? What if they execute you on sight?" Jara's expression didn't change. "Then I die with honor." Jake felt his chest tighten. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Silence. Then, Jara took a slow step forward. Her voice was softer now. I have to try. Jake exhaled sharply. He knew she meant it. And that scared him more than any war. A fateful decision. Jake's hands trembled. You're really gonna leave, aren't you? Jara hesitated. Then, in a quiet voice, she said, I have to. Jake turned away. Fine, he muttered. Jara's eyes softened. Jake. His heart pounded. His mind screamed at him to stop her, to tell her he needed her. But instead, he clenched his fists and let her walk away. The moment that changed everything. Jara took slow steps toward the Draken warship. Jake watched her go, his chest aching in a way he didn't understand. Then, a shadow moved. Jake's breath caught. The creature. It had found them, and it was heading straight for Jara. The warning too late. Zhara. She barely had time to turn. Before the thing lunged, Jake's blaster was already in his hands. Boom. The shot slammed into the creature's back, but it was too late. Jara was tackled to the ground. She gasped, her blade flashing in the dim light. But the creature was strong. Too strong. It pinned her down, its glowing eyes locking onto hers. And then, it spoke. Draken blood. It hissed. You belong to us. The truth revealed. Jake's world tilted. This wasn't just a monster. It knew the Draken. It was hunting them. Jake's hands shook. Jara, get out of there. Jara struggled, her teeth clenched in pain. But the creature didn't kill her. It just stared, as if it was claiming her, as if she was already theirs. And then, it vanished into the shadows, leaving only silence behind, a future in flames. Jara sat up, breathing hard. Jake rushed to her side. What the hell was that? Jara's face was pale. It spoke my language. Jake exhaled. Yeah, I noticed. Jara's hands shook. She had fought wars, killed enemies, survived impossible battles, but nothing had ever scared her like this. Jake gently grabbed her wrist. Are you okay? She looked at him, golden eyes filled with something new. Doubt, fear, and trust. For the first time, she wasn't looking at him like an enemy. She was looking at him like a partner, like the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Jara took a deep breath, and then she made her choice. We're leaving, she said. Jake blinked. What about your people? Jara's jaw clenched. My people never told me the truth. She turned to him. But you did. Jake's heart pounded. Then let's go. Jara nodded. They turned toward their ship, side by side. And together, they disappeared into the stars. War, love, and the future. The stars stretched endlessly before them, but Jake Carter and Jara weren't looking at the stars anymore. They were running. Running from the Draken Empire. Running from the unknown creatures that whispered in the dark. Running from a war they never started but could no longer escape. But most of all, they were running toward the truth. And that truth would change the galaxy forever. The escape. Their stolen Draken scout ship raced through the void, engines burning hot. Behind them, nothing. But Jake could feel it. Something was following them. Jara sat at the controls, her face tense. Whatever that thing was, she muttered, it let us go. Jake leaned back in his seat, exhaling. Yeah, and that's what worries me. Jara's golden eyes flicked toward him. Jake wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a man who had lost everything, and was now holding on to the only thing he had left. Her. And that scared him more than war. The message that changed everything. The ship's comms crackled. A distorted signal. Weak, but human. Jake's heart leaped. That's an Earth frequency. Jara quickly adjusted the settings, clearing the static. A voice, desperate, urgent. This is Captain Elias Ward of the Human Resistance. If anyone is receiving this, Earth is under attack. We are not alone in this war. We need help. The message repeated. Jake's blood ran cold. Jara's voice was quiet. It's them. Jake turned to her. Who? Jara's jaw clenched. The creatures. The ones who spoke to me. She exhaled. They're already on Earth. Jake's mind raced. He had left Earth thinking the Draken were the only enemy. Now something worse was coming. And he wasn't there to stop it. Not yet. The unthinkable decision. Jake turned to Jara. We have to go back. Jara hesitated. Earth will kill me on sight. Jake's stomach twisted. She was right. She was still a Draken soldier, no matter what she had done for him. But Earth didn't know what he knew. They didn't know who she really was, or how much they needed her. Jake grabbed her hand. Then I'll make them listen. Jara stared at him. Something in her expression softened. Something Jake was afraid to name. Finally, she nodded. Then let's go save your planet, human. Jake smirked. Now you're talking. They punched the engines. And for the first time in history, a human and a Draken warrior flew toward Earth, not as enemies, but as allies. Maybe even something more. Earth's final stand. When they arrived, Earth was burning. Cities under siege. Ships falling from the sky. And in the heart of it all, a massive alien warship unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It wasn't Draken. It wasn't human. It was something far worse. And in that moment, Jake realized the truth. The war was never between humans and Draken. It was always about something else. Something older. Something that had been waiting. And now it was time for the real fight to begin. The final battle. Jake and Jara dived into the chaos, weaving through explosions as human and Draken ships fought side by side. The old war was forgotten. Now they all had a new enemy. Jake's comms crackled to life. A familiar voice. General Hayes. Carter, what the hell are you doing in an enemy ship? Jake grinned. Saving your ass, sir. Silence. Then, laughter. You crazy bastard. You really brought a Draken to my war. Jake glanced at Jara. She smirked. Jake smirked back. No, sir. I brought my co-pilot. The future begins. The battle rage. The enemy was powerful. But humans and Draken fighting together. They were unstoppable. And in the heart of the battle, Jake and Jara flew as one. No longer enemies. No longer bound by war. But by something far stronger. Something neither of them could deny anymore. Because some bonds, they aren't made in peace. They're forged in fire. And Jake Carter was never letting go. Not of Earth. Not of the fight. And not of her. The stars burned with fire and war. The sky over Earth was filled with smoke, wreckage, and the echoes of a battle that would never be forgotten. The old war was gone. A new one had begun. And in the heart of it all, two warriors stood together. One human, one Draken, two souls who should have never met. Yet here they were, fighting not as enemies, not as strangers, but as something more. Jake Carter looked at Jara, blood on her armor, fire in her eyes. He smirked. Still think humans are weak. Jara exhaled, a rare smile tugging at her lips. Still think Draken don't have hearts. They stood there, side by side, watching the battlefield fall silent. The war wasn't over. The galaxy wasn't safe, but they would face it together. Because some stories don't end. Some legends never die. And this was just the beginning. The end.